IP friends, welcome to #IP series with Rita. You. Okay, just messing around, but yeah, welcome guys to #IP series with Rita and Richinda, which features conversations on recent intellectual property cases and developments, which could take the form of copyright, trademark, patent, industrial design, trade secret, and plant varieties. I'm super excited to welcome my new listeners because this is the 49th episode. Okay, but yeah, thank you guys for tuning in to listen to my podcast. Don't forget to subscribe and favorite my podcast. And for my returning listeners, you guys are the best. You guys are the best. Thank you for always coming through for me. Okay, so today's episode, I have a returning guest. She was part of my Christmas edition. We talked about software licensing, but today we'll be talking about an industry or a sector that we've noticed over the last 2 to 3 years that has been thriving and growing. And then you keep seeing the IP potential, and again, you keep wondering to yourself, are these people doing the right thing? Are they documenting? Are they investing IP-wise? So yeah, before we get into that conversation, this is not an interview, trust me guys. This is just a conversation between two IP practitioners. Ijeoma is she's practicing in the US and I'm practicing in Nigeria. So we're going to give our various thoughts on our topic. But first of all, let's have Ijeoma tell us about herself. Hi, Ijeoma. It's so nice to have you.
Hello, Rita. How are you doing?
Fine, thank you. How are you?
I'm doing okay, my dear. I'm doing very okay. Thank you.
So, our guest is here with us. Ijeoma, could you kindly tell us what you've been up to since the last time we had you on our show?
Hello, Rita. It's always a pleasure to be here. As you rightly said, my name is Ijeoma Unachukwu. I'm an attorney currently in the US. I'm barred in New York. I can't remember where I was when we last spoke. Perhaps it's been close to a year now, right? Okay, so I was with a software company at the time we spoke. Now I've transitioned to another organization where I lead the small business advising for small businesses on advisory issues, intellectual property issues, etc., etc. So yeah, thank you.
I also did speak at the USP. That was a huge one. Congrats.
Yeah. Thank you so much. It was on artificial intelligence and software. It was, what's it called? It's the International Copyright Institute. Yeah, it was really a good experience, and just meeting folks. Oh, apparently there were no Nigerians there though, but just meeting folks was really good exposure. But yeah, I'm happy to be here on the IP series as always, and yeah.
Thank you. So, so Ijeoma had reached out to me. She was like, Rita, let's collaborate and talk about it. And I'm like, sure, why not? And then we picked a date, and here we are. So basically, our topic for today is action for comedy skits. Now we've noticed that in the last 2 to 3 years, comedy has been thriving. We've seen a lot of comedy skits. Last year we had the lockdown. There were lots of skits going out. TikTok also helped, project a lot of comedy skits makers. We had the challenge era where everyone was doing the slow-mo. We had the just too funny. What's that skit now that? There was this trend that just too funny did. Don't leave me. Oh my god! It was an international viral sensation.
I tell you, it was a vibe back to back.
Yeah, everyone was like jumping, and then I was like, okay. But now let's, commercial aspect, from the intellectual property aspect. As we know, IP basically protects creative work, and comedy is, there's been a lot of conversation and debate that whether there is a proper legal when it comes to protecting comedy, whether it's a stand-up comedy or live performance. But now, because of this new age of comedy where people the opportunity to also for themselves, so this conversation is just going to focus on IP basically. So don't expect anything out of the ordinary. It's not going to be comedy fix. We're going to do our best to make it a bit more funny, so you get to enjoy and also get an idea of what IP, the role of IP. So Ijeoma, over to you. Like we said, this is more of a commentary than interview. So let's hear what do you think is from the comedians. I mean, we did talk about it just too funny, but looking at it from a bigger what are your thoughts?
Yeah, thank you so much, Rita. So as you know, well, you probably don't know, but I really love comedy, and I think that's why I really wanted to talk about this. I love comedy. Like on my Instagram feed, that's all you see. If it's not just too funny, it's Crazeclown. If it's not Crazeclown,
yeah.
What's the other one?
There's this Zig, the guy that does the female, the pastor, and everything. Then, yeah, they have Taooma as well. Taooma, yeah, then BrodaShaggi
doing so well. Oh my goodness! Yeah. And then there's the other one. What's the other girl who her name starts with yes, it starts with M, right? Yeah. And so we see that if there's anything to first talk about, I want to acknowledge the role of social media in proliferating comedy, right? In creating the number of comedians we have today. Before, it was usually limited to the basket mouths or those guys who had the capital to pull stages or do proper stand-up comedy, right? But now things have changed. Now everyone who thinks they are funny can, create a page on social media.
Funny. I'm funny, please. Why haven't I done my own comedy skit, Ijeoma?
I know, Rita, but it's just, it's so I just want to acknowledge social media and how that has brought comedy to everyone. And more importantly for Nigerians, where comedy is a way of relief for us, right? It's a way we go through stress. And so it's very important for us to talk about the protections for these comedians, especially the ones on social media, because IP is important, right? As you know, I'm sure people who follow your podcast probably know that there are 4 types of IP. There's the copyright, the patent, there's the trademark, there's the trade secret. Most likely, patent won't be
give it much.
Yeah, patent won't provide most of the protection or any protection at all. It will most likely be maybe through copyrights, maybe trade secret. No trade secret.
Trademark, copyright. Yeah, so that when you mentioned trademark, so we had this case. I think that was 2019. So Macroni. You're doing well. And it turned out, I think it was last year, I can't remember, but I did talk about it though. But I think what happened was one of these banks used his short phrase or something, bang, bang, bang. And he came on Twitter, I was like, yeah, is it my intellectual property? And people were like, how I was like, okay, guys, just calm down. Is this a copyright or a trademark? So, copyright basically, protects works that are expressed in a tangible form. So if I'm not seeing your videos, your music, basically do another layer of protection. Your short phrases like Debo Macroni on. I don't know if he has trademarked it, but I do hope he has. Because I did watch a commercial where he featured and he used catchphrases in it. But then IP, it's something that comedy skit makers should take seriously. Copyrighted, because copyright gives you automatic protection. In Nigeria, the NCC, that's the Nigeria Copyright
advices that you deposit a copy and then you get an e-certificate stating, oh, you are the one that, have the rights to this work and stuff like that. But trademark is another level where you get to actually commercialize and exploit your comedies and the rest of it. So yeah.
That's very true. I agree with you, Rita. But there's also something, I think there's an added layer of complexities complexity for comedians, right? So for at least based on my ideas of readings and really looking at it's not like I'm a comedian, but I really love comedy and the creativity that goes into comedy. For me, I really think of it, and what comes to mind is the money is in the idea, right?
Yes.
So it's not really, so the money is in the idea, but copyright protects only the expression, which
Yes.
proves this idea expression dichotomy, which copyright has always been trying to figure out. Not just copyright, but experts have always been trying to figure out. So because if you think about it, multiple people can express one idea in a thousand ways, right? So somebody can come up and say, I have this funny joke about the weather, right? About sunlight. This is a random this is probably the worst example I could have come up with. But
that's your own comedy.
Yeah.
I think so. That's your own comedy right now.
Yeah. Probably it's my own comedy. Right. So let's say someone comes up with a joke about the idea, not the idea, with a joke about the weather, about sunlight, or about or even let's talk about Nigeria and our president, right? Let's say someone comes up with a joke about Nigeria and the president. The fact that you've come up with a joke that is anchored on the idea of the Nigerian president does not preclude others from coming up with similar jokes. Do you get? So somebody can see your joke. If a person comes up with a separate way of expressing that joke, there's really nothing you can do. Now, a bystander like me, or someone who is not a comedian, could hear the two jokes and think, oh wow, that sounds similar. Or the first person who came up with the joke could think, oh, this person stole my joke, or this person stole my intellectual property. But come on now, right? Copyright only protects. And so this is the problem for me. This is why the IP issues for me, for comedians, are particularly heightened, right? Because the money is in the idea. While let's say in the music industry, someone can sing about love, and in this different way, everybody will say, oh my God, that's fantastic. Another person can come and sing about love too, and everyone will be like, oh, that's fantastic, and that's completely different. But for comedians, it's a bit different, right? Someone can come up with this idea of and someone who hears the idea can come up with a different expression. The first person might think, oh, you stole my joke and you've infringed on my intellectual property, but that might not be the case, right? And so this because copyright does not protect the idea, but rather protects the idea. Two guys with the same idea based on President Buhari, right? Recently I just saw one. Did you watch Squid Game?
I'm going to say yes, and I've started it. I started watching it with a friend. But I don't want to tell my friend that I'm way ahead of him. So I don't want the particular episode to apologies if you listen to this episode. I lied. But yeah, I did what I watched it because one, I'm a South Korean fan, and I usually tell the reason why I enjoy watching South Koreans is that I see it as comedy relief. The same way people come, but dude, I'm like, dude, just take it chill pill, watch it and enjoy it. And everyone is going Squid Game. I'm like, okay, I thought you guys didn't like South Korea, but yeah, let's get your point. Squid Game analysis now. Yeah,
so recently I saw, just this morning actually, when I woke up, I saw a picture of President Buhari in one of the
Squid. In one of the Squid, I'm like, you guys, calm down.
Right? And so that really cracked me up. And that's an idea, right? So that's an idea. So I'm using an example of that's an idea. Nothing stops others. Maybe the image is protected to some extent. Let's not talk about images now. But Nothing stops one person that wants to make a joke about IP, about Buhari in Squid Game.
Let's use another example. I'm still in Nigeria. Ijeoma, please.
Okay, let's walk away from it. Let's walk away from it, right? But that is just to point that there are different expressions for one joke, and that creates the impression that, oh, you stole my joke. But it's really because a lot of comedians in Nigeria don't know the copyright rules or the intellectual property rules, one, and the intellectual property rules are not the best at protecting their interest when it comes to jokes. Right?
That's interesting. So I think, again, why comedians are usually protective of their concept notice. They always want to monopolize, like, okay, because I'm talking about a red pillow, and I started by like, okay, I went to the shop, I got this red pillow, I walked out, I saw another person with a red pillow, and then someone comes and say, oh, I got home, my wife got a red pillow, and because the person said I got a pillow, so let's say the person is hammering on the red pillow, like, that shows that this person actually stole my concept note. He took parts and bits of my comedy and put it in his work, and you're like, dude, let's listen to the end of this person's story instead of come out in a comedy format. But then when it comes to the comedy skit, it's more of a storyline in a very short, sometimes on that 3 minutes, on that 7 minutes, if you have the time. And people 7 minutes, I don't know why most of them do that, but then, like, I used to wonder, like, this guy is not cheap in Nigeria. Why should I be watching a 7 minute skit? Yeah, if you take your time to actually follow the story, you get to understand, that, oh, so this is where he was heading to. But I do believe that on that 2 minutes, you can actually and get me laughing, or even from your face, like this guy, this Zig Saloma guy, and they're just too funny. I think just looking at them, you already know that, okay, this is going to be very funny. It doesn't matter what the storyline is or when. So imagine when BrodaShaggi came out and people were like, BrodaShaggi, another thing again, I feel comedy skits makers should take into consideration is being consistent and putting yourself out there. So if you're looking at it from trademark aspect, trademark is more of your short phrases, your name, logo. What are the logos affiliated? I know BrodaShaggi has a logo. Macroni has the short phrase. Taooma, her legendary slap, mother slap. What else again?
Like for Tawo, we have the slap. Another thing to show the whole idea, expression, dichotomy, is not just how to showing how copyright does not protect the idea, but only expression. And so comedians should be mindful of this, is how Tawo has the slap. Crazeclown also has the slap. And then not only that, there are a lot of comedians who have this impression of you being a woman, like a man being a woman. That's an idea. Like this guy, African Ace. I think that's his name.
African Ace. Oh yeah. Like, I think Dami or Damola or something.
Yeah.
Of Obi, what's that guy's name now? He's on dreads now. Obi something. They used to have a clique before him.
Oh, really?
African Ape. Yes. So they were like the early stage or days of comedy skits. Then there's this other guy, Nnamdi. He's British. The famous guy where he told his dad that he impregnated an underage British girl. And that was like, you're going back to Nigeria, and called his mom. Yeah, so all those people have been there. So how have they been able to exploit the IP aspect of their creative work, which is something that I feel if they come together as an association with the help of regulators or lawyers, create a proper structure on how to monetize all of this. How do we go about all of this now? Because there are contracts involved. You also have people that assist in making your comedy, bringing it, the final version of the comedy that we actually saw.
Yeah.
Some people spend as much as a day or two coming up with ideas or structure. I do my podcast. I have attempted YouTubing. The editing is not here. So all of these people, do they have some, certain percentage when it comes to IP? Do you get?
That's That's really an interesting question, right? And another thing is that it's not. I feel like just based on the little I know about the comedy industry, even here in the US, is that's where the IP norms come in, right? So if we're being sincere, even though there is copyright, trademark, trade secret, in the comedy industry, they really don't care so much about those things, right? Because first of all, enforcement.
Here we go.
Comedians don't want to take. We've said all this to say that there is copyright. There is copyright protections, but comedians should be aware of how copyright interplays with their comedy and with their jokes, right? As we've said, copyright does not protect the idea, and that is why Taooma, Crazeclown, and all the others can have similar concepts, even though expressed differently, right? So it's not enough for you to say, oh, because this person is has a slap, that slap. Crazeclown cannot say, Tawo, don't slap your no mother should slap anybody anymore because I slap my son in my own play, right? So it doesn't work that way. So I think the next thing we should also try to talk about is then how do comedians monetize their punchlines or their jokes? And for me, one thing that comes to mind is, as you mentioned, trademark, right? One way to protect, right? Even though it really would come from selling merchandise and then, registering your trademark in relation to those goods and services. So like, so maybe I can't remember any punchlines right now, but like, for just too funny.
I'll give you one.
Yes, so like I however it's pronounced, the best way to protect that, because you most likely can't copyright. So just to be clear, guys, and for all those listening, like copyright does not protect short phrases, right? So you cannot protect, you can't copyright I, right? And so
you can trademark it,
yes, but you surely can trademark it. But even if you trademark it, something to be clear about is that you have to trademark it in relation to specific goods and services, right? That you trademark a phrase does not give you exclusive ownership completely to that phrase. You can't say "oi" because you've said "oi." Nobody should use "oi" in relation to pots or in relation to computers, right? So it depends on how this. So usually the trend is that they will want to start selling shirts, right? Merchandise, maybe cups or whatever with this exactly.
Books, bags.
Exactly, right? And so if that's the point, if they're going to be doing that, it's good at that point. One way you can start commercializing is via trademark, right? So unless Rita, do you have any other additional thoughts? Because patent doesn't do anything at this point, but
no, there's no way you are expected to be having this. Another thing that I would want comedy skit makers to take note of this, that you have exclusive rights to do certain things, like distributing your comedy skit to the public, adapting it. So you want to do a live stage performance, or you want to turn it into a movie at the end of this. So you're doing a compilation of all your comedy skits. I know this guy, twice_11 has done something like that. Then one other guy, I did come across someone that recently did a live stage play. I can't remember the name he used now, but
I think that one is If I Be Man. If I Be Man, if it's I Be Man. There's one about he made a play out of, I don't know, I can't remember if it's the same one. But yeah, keep going.
Then you can also think another way of translating from maybe Yoruba or Igbo, people that are not lettered can still understand your comedy skits. You can also opt for, he keeps coming and going, cast your comedy skit. So you can also convert your comedy skits into other forms, audio forms, book forms, so there are so many ways you can actually monetize and also commercialize it. But then again, another thing to note is, I did mention people that work with comedy skit makers.
Yeah.
Are you doing that as a hire? Were you employed to assist? Did you co-write any concept note? All of those things are IP related and they have to be documented. You're going to be signing contract. I'm not sure how many comedy skit makers sign contracts.
Wonder.
So you have
I really wonder.
yeah, so then you have so in terms of visibility now, you want to be the likes of Don Jazzy as a featured guest comedy skit. What was the arrangement? What was the agreement? Because I think the thing with IP owners is it's when the money starts to come that everyone starts saying, oh, what share, what is my share?
Exactly.
You know, all these conversations. But I think the comedy sector lack a proper structure in terms IP wise general. No one wants to sue. So we don't really have so much precedent. I think in Nigeria, the Macroni case was one of the first that caught it caused a lot of buzz on Twitter and off Twitter, and I think makers thinking, okay, so Bayu always say fuck shit. So I want to argue that he has commercialized or gone forward to do an IP registration or protected his work. So what can I link you to? Can you license or can you assign your comedy skits to someone? People are using I think thanks to YouTube, a lot of people have been using YouTube to also push out their content out there. So IP basically shapes the creative world of comedy. I think now we're focusing on skits, so let's just focus on skits because the live stage performances are something else. And then again, we've seen a lot of collaboration. So documentation. What are the conversations you're having with people you're calling? And I like the fact that most of these skit makers collaborating in terms of creating content. So you're making use of every other person's platform. So we are both comedians. So Ijeoma is a comedian, Anri is a comedian, and then we both come up with something. I use my platform of say 1 million followers. You use your platform of say 1.5 followers, and it gives we get to exchange fans and also onboard new fans and create new fans. So if we decide to push out say a merch show, we are both going to make money. I mean, loads of money. Then you now talk of opportunities out there. I know BrodaShaggi is acting currently. Crazeclown. Yeah, he was featured in this what's it called? Charge and Bail. Yeah.
Charge and Bail, yeah.
There's a new it's a new movie. It's actually coming out on the 15th of this month. I went to the cinema the other day and I saw the poster. Then there's this other guy too. Yeah, he's always going for it. Yeah, he's always going for interview. I mean it's funny how people just sit and create something out of nothing. The things that you don't even take to be very serious, what some other person can find the humor in it and decide to make other people like you and I happy at the end of the day.
Yeah, I have to say I agree, right? There are a lot of opportunities to commercialize. And based on what I know in the comedy industry, something to just highlight again at this point is it looks like in the comedy industry, right? It's something. The comedy industry can also be referred to as what is called a negative space, right? And what, at least based on what that really means is this space, copyright norms, copyright laws, and copyright rules don't necessarily work in this space because, as you know, right, even though there is copyright law, it is a fixed law and applies in different industries with different rules, right? So I said all that just to say that in the comedy space, it looks like what is more prevalent is less of copyright laws and more of informal rules, right? So everybody knows that completely bad in the comedy industry for you to steal somebody's joke. Even though I'm not going to sue you for it, there are consequences for stealing somebody's joke. I could badmouth.
Would you recommend cancel culture? Right, in the era of everyone boycott or canceling this person, would you in terms of recommending, would you say if this person steals this person's story or does this for more than 2 times, they should to him generally? Would you
I don't.
advocate for a cancel
I
culture
don't.
in comedy?
I would not want to advocate for it. But the honest truth is that
Yeah.
when you steal someone's jokes, there are implications. The implication here is that the person, the owner of the joke, completely abandons it. Do you get? So
Yeah.
it's very different from the music industry where when you steal my song, I can still go and sing it and everybody will know it's me. Once you steal my joke and play it on social media, I probably can't use it like to a large extent. So let's say it's skits. If it's skits and you steal it, and I guess maybe somehow in my head I've gone back to stand up. But let's just stand up just to portray this point. If you steal my joke, put it on social media, and then someone comes for my show and I repeat the same joke, the effect of the joke is less because the audience has heard it before.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? Right? So while I don't advocate for the cancel culture, it kind of works in the comedy industry to in my opinion, to an extent, because one, we know that you're not going to sue me. You probably don't want to spend that amount suing me. So what are the consequences for you stealing my joke? Right? There has to be some sort of consequences because I put my time and effort in recording that joke, in not in recording it, but in coming up with it. It's not a joke to sit and come up with all those creative stuff, and for you in one swoop to come and steal it. And because you know I can't sue you, there are no formal copyright structures here, nobody sues anybody. The honest truth is, in the comedy industry, at least to the extent here in the US, there is some sort of someone has done, I can't remember the article, but there was an article on this informal IP structures, and it's like a complete taboo for you to steal a joke, even though no one sues for it, because the consequences is that one, they will badmouth you in the comedy industry, right? And once people see exactly. And once people in the comedy industry say, oh, this person is a joke thief, that's it, you're done. Your career in that industry is practically set on fire. And so that's why, in the end, I don't advocate for it, but to a large extent, it works right now for comedians. But I don't know to what extent, right? I don't know to what extent that it works. Because there have also been people have said another way people resort, another recourse when there has been a joke theft is then people resort to violence, right? They use threats. Now that I completely do not advocate for. Right? Now those are...
how does violence like one is good, one is bad? Why would people want to link them together? What's going to make you cry? What's going to make I think let's all advocate for more laughter, so we remain forever young and
exactly. So I completely agree with that. For the violence, for the threats, but in the US here, there has been some writings even that in the comedy industry that could be a way to get people to back up their jokes, right? So but if we look at it, how effective are these IP norms? Because these informal rules, right? Because while they work in the industry, they don't work outside of the industry. Let me give an example. Let's say Josh Too Funny has come up with what was his line again? His punchline last year. I can't remember. So I see, Rita, you know this Don't Leave Me too well. You're too excited about Don't Leave Me. But that's an example. So let's say let me paint two scenarios here. In the Crazeclown, let me give a different example. Just Too Funny has come up with Don't Leave Me. A new comedian all of a sudden wants to start using Don't Leave Me. Now, those informal rules might work where Just Too Funny will reach out to him and say, guy, now my joke you they steal, or please don't take my
content.
That's my content, to please back off, or I have connections in the industry, so please back off, right? That might work. The guy who is just starting will say, I really don't want issues with Just Too Funny. He's a big guy in the comedy industry. Or I really don't want issues with African Ace. He's a big guy in the comedy industry, and he will back off. What happens when it's a big company who steals just too funny, who takes that joke and uses it to sell t-shirts.
Wow. That's
exactly, the informal IP rules there won't work, right? The fact that I can say, oh, before, let's say Just Too Funny would have told other comedians, oh guys, nobody should feature this guy, he's a joke thief. That won't work for a company because the company is not in the IP industry. He's not in the comedy industry. Do you get what I'm saying? It's important to have agreements in place. Under copyright rules, there are no agreements, especially when I'm an independent contractor for you. Even though you pay that money, you don't necessarily own the content, right? And so I feel like that's a scenario where we should ask what was written down, right? And it is very possible that even if there was no formal paper, if in the one,
I was like, how do we now resolve? Because me, I won't say I enjoy social media banter, but then, it just goes to show you that social media has sort of created a bar or clogged the eye of people as to doing things legally. So in that instance now, you're representing the comedy skit maker and I'm representing the brand. What are you going?
Well, the honest truth is, now it really depends on where we are. If we're in Nigeria, I think the copyright rules require that there should be some form of writing because I'm not your employee, right? Exactly. So if there was no writing as to ownership, right, I can simply argue that, oh, this is, I still own the work, right? It's very clear. So it's important for comedians to know this, and not just comedians, but the sponsors, the marketers that use these comedians to embed ads in their skit.
But what I was going to talk about was how to resolve issues where a comedy skit maker creates content for a brand at the end of the day, and the brand is like, oh, I own what you've said. How do you resolve that, especially when there was no contract signed? So we just did a DM conversation. Since you're this, help me do this. How much will you charge? 1 million naira, blah blah blah. And then you do it, and next thing they're coming to say, oh, that thing you've created, hand it over. What would you do in that instant? Like, guy, I sat down, created a story, shot the video, did the editing, and then you come out to say you own it. But you're forgetting one thing. There was no contract. So how do we go to court, or do we do social media call out? I hired the service of Black Pen, and Black Pen decided not to come through and asked him to hand over after paying. Okay. Yeah. Let's have your IP joke.
Thank you. My IP joke is, don't leave me. But minus that, I guess my final comments will be this. Copyright and the various or informal rules in the comedy industry is a friend and a foe of the comedian, right? Well,
interesting.
While copyright will protect and give the rights to enforce in court, it does not protect, which seems to be very important to comedians. On the other hand, why have these informal rules that help you with bad mouthing a, or help you with undercutting a joke thief? They are not necessarily useful outside of the comedy industry, where someone who is not a comedian steals your jokes, or not just steals your joke, or a company, as I said earlier, takes your punchline and uses it for brand. I'll wrap up by saying, so especially if a company is the one who steals your punchline or your joke somehow and brands it on a t-shirt, you see that those IP norms are not as important there, because you can't undercut the company. The company is not really part of the comedy industry, right? So it's important for comedians to be aware of all this. But more than that, it's important for them to be aware of these rules, especially when dealing with sponsors, so that you don't see someone, a sponsor or a marketer, trying to bully you of your content when there was no written agreement, right? It's important to know that too. And so, to a very large extent, I guess in the end, I just want to say I'm very proud of the Nigerian comedy industry. I think it is what keeps us as a country going. I do hope for better structures in the future, to see that this comedy keeps growing. It looks like it's an infant industry, but it really isn't. It just there's been a boom of comedians on social media, and so it's important to know. I think a study should be done to really know how it works in Nigeria, because most of my knowledge is based on the
US.
US, right? But just to know how comedians do it, how they make money, what happens in those deals with sponsors. Like, so when Crazeclown puts an ad out there and imbibes it in a joke, in a comedy skit, what's really the arrangement, right? And then how do the skits also interplay with the social media platforms? Because as you know, when you post on these platforms, there are terms of service as well. So I feel like there's a lot of area for study, but I really am excited about the Nigerian industry, and it has been such a pleasure recording this with you, Rita. Your enthusiasm is out of this world, and I'm super grateful for IPC.
Thank you, Ijeoma. I really enjoyed recording this with you as well. Stay tuned, guys. We have a comedy show coming up. Just kidding. But then trying to make us all see how serious it is. But like you said, it's exciting to see how the comedy industry in Nigeria is growing, and thanks to platforms like TikTok and Instagram, the pandemic. I mean, Don't Leave Me was like the most viral challenge ever. But Ijeoma wants to leave me now, so I'm going to let her go. I'm going to have more other interesting conversations with you offline. Yeah, let's get your social.
Yeah, of course you can. Yeah, you most likely reach me on LinkedIn at Ijeoma Unachukwu. I'm best reached there. You can send me a DM, send me a friend request, and just let me know that maybe you heard me speak here, and that would be nice. I would really love to connect with folks, even folks in the comedy industry as well. I'm super curious about that industry in Nigeria and how it thrives. So yeah, super excited to be here as always. Thank you so much, Rita.
Thank you, Ijeoma. Thank you so
much. Okay, guys, in signing out for the 49th episode, here's my IP joke. This isn't mine, so I'm not going to claim it. So last year they had this IP banter, not so much of a banter, more like IP comedy going on Twitter, and the one that stuck to my head was someone was like, "Hey Mark, what's your trade?" You dig? So it's basically just trademark. That's what the joke was about. But yeah, copyright, trademark, these are the most important IPs for this episode. So if you did enjoy listening to this episode, if it made you laugh at some point, I know you did. If you have a favorite Nigerian comedy skit maker, do send us a voice note. If you have other interesting stories you want us to talk about, send us an email to ipseriesinfo@gmail.com. And don't forget to subscribe and favorite my podcast. So see you in the next. I'm super excited. My 50th episode is in the making. Yeah, I'm trying to be funny. But yeah, thank you, Ijeoma, for gracing us with your presence. Thank you to my listeners, and for my new listeners, please check out the previous 48th episode. That would mean a lot to me. So peace out, guys. Going to work on my own comedy skit. Yeah, not joking this time, but yeah.